A few weeks ago, we aired my interview with Nehemiah Gordon as he revealed the ancient Hebrew Gospels. And this is something that we have known about and we spoke of 18 years ago. And for the first time, Nehemiah then presented the treasures from the Vatican junk box with the ancient Hebrew manuscripts. Well, shortly after that, I got on the phone with Miles Jones, a PhD linguist who is in Texas at this time. We began talking about this, and the conversation went on for hours. I said, Miles, you've got to come in. You've got to come in. We've got to discuss this, because Miles was particularly fascinated with this revelation, but he had been working on the Hebrew Gospels in other Gospels other than Matthew, and going along with what Nehemiah had found. The two of them had been together for hours and hours, and I said, Miles, you've got to get in. We've got to talk about this on the air. He flew in, and that morning, that is when we found out that our friend Joel Richardson had gotten to the top of Mount Sinai, and also we had another friend who got into Saudi Arabia with 4K drones and took us to Mount Sinai, and at that point, we launched off on that last week, and I said, Miles, you've got to come back. This is just the beginning. Miles, it's good to have you back with us again. And there's just so much. We spent hours on the phone. We spent this last week on it, and this revelation concerning what's happened at Mount Sinai, what is happening there, and the Arabian government now setting aside 200 square miles with Mount Sinai being right in the middle of it.
Right in the middle.
And going to develop a high-tech city out there. This is something that is breaking.
And open it up to tourism, so everyone will get to go to Jebel Allah's Mount Sinai in Arabia. They know this. They're not advertising it yet, but they will. I think it's part and parcel of the plan.
So, Miles, we really want to get into the Hebrew Gospels. We want to get into that, into your research, and for you to let us in behind the scenes of the conversations that you and Nehemiah have been exploring some of these things together. But let's first of all, let's step back, because you have been involved in the Mount Sinai situation. We know that Tim Mahoney went over there, who was the one that did the
film.
The film.
Patterns of Evidence.
Patterns of Evidence, the greatest biblical documentary that's ever been done
on the Exodus.
And he went over there with Jim and Penny Caldwell, Aaron Sen out of Israel. Aaron was with Ron Wyatt down at the Red Sea crossing, etc. And the last time they were in there, Jim and Penny called me beforehand and said, we want you to know, don't say anything about it, because we're going in undercover, and don't say anything about it. And it was a life and death situation that they were involved in over there. But they came back. We got some more evidence. But I want to go back, because Miles, you were the one that did the work on the footprints and the ancient alphabet. This is breaking stuff. This is this is the first time in this generation that any of this stuff has been known. And so I want you to take us back to Mount Sinai. Now that we've got more of this footage, now it's all been documented, but still the revelations are unfolding from that moment in time.
Well, here's the importance of the evidence at Sinai. Secularists are going to use this to destroy your faith. They say the Bible is not an accurate history. They'll try and change the chronology from the biblical chronology, and they'll say they never went to Mount Sinai. It's all just a fable. Right? So
right.
We have absolute evidence.
It's called fake news back then, and they have built an entire religions on their false interpretation of the Bible, and most of it is going from the English. Their English versions, and they treat like that is like the original language that Moses spoke in Elizabethan English, and they're ignoring the facts on the ground.
And well, this is important, because if the seminal event of the Bible in the Old Testament, the Old Covenant, is not true, then what difference does it make finding the Hebrew Gospels? It's all built on a mythical foundation. But if the seminal event of the Bible is true, then it takes on, then God's word is true, the word of Yahweh is true, and everything else in the Bible needs to be treated in the same way. So you have to have that. You cannot go at it any other way. Either it is true or it isn't. And I'm a scientist. I looked at this stuff. I was fully willing to say, well, you know, it looks like they got it wrong. But the evidence all led me to the point where I recognized that everything it says happened in the Exodus happened exactly the way it says it did in the Word. So that's what we found there. We found the scientific evidence of the truth of the seminal event of the Old Covenant, the covenant at Sinai, which has changed the world. And we found the inscriptions, the footprints, the archaeological evidence to prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt to any objective, reasonable person.
Okay, now I want to step back in time with you. Let's take this all the way back in time. And I'll start out that one of the most compelling things that I saw, and this is like close to 25 years ago, is the very grainy 8mm footage of Pharaoh's chariots and army on the bottom of the Red Sea. And when I saw that evidence, this is something I said, this is one of the greatest evangelistic treasures I've ever seen because we have physical evidence of the crossing of the Red Sea on dry ground. But that was only the beginning of that, because once that was found, then they knew that Mount Sinai had to be where the Bible said it was, in the land of Midian, where Moses was a Midianite shepherd for 40 years of his life. And so this is the next piece that came into being. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because, you know, I knew him personally, Ron Wyatt, but you also know about that adventure into Sinai and finding the real Mount Sinai.
Well, there have been a lot of people that have claimed to have found the mountain, but there's evidence of it from every period of history. In the modern period, of course, Ron was the first to go there, followed by others who wanted to claim credit for it. But Jim and Penny Caldwell were the ones who got in there 14 times, 15 times, because they went back once and got out the evidence to prove it was true.
They literally followed Ron Wyatt's hand-drawn map that he left with an innkeeper at Nueva, Egypt, when Jim and Penny were traveling from Sharm el-Sheikh up to Nueva, Egypt. So they received the map from the man who got it an hour earlier, from Ron Wyatt, and then they went over there, and for 9 years.
Right, they went there 14 times while they were living there, starting in 1987, and they shared in 1992. They shared their films and their artifacts and their photographic evidence with Ron Wyatt, and they were still in Arabia, so working for Aramco. So they really didn't want word to get out.
Right,
things have loosened up a lot since then.
Yeah, Ron wouldn't tell me, wouldn't tell anyone who the people were in the video because their lives were in danger, and at several times they were held at gunpoint by the Bedouins there.
They were. The frontier police held them 2 times, even though they had permission to be in that region. They were still
held. It didn't matter.
No, they were still arrested 2 times. Well, they brought this information out after all this time, but having given it to Ron and they shared it. They were very gracious about it.
Oh, yeah.
So every website, every book, every documentary that has the Sinai information on it is using the documentation of the Caldwells.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
they are the ones. Now, there have been other people that have gotten information out. Dr. Sung Hak Kim got artifacts out, especially the Moses stone, also called the Yahweh stone.
I want you to tell people that story. We want to get deeper into that because this is something that you've put your hands on.
Well, yes, I translated that. And if the Saudis had known what it said, it probably never would have left Saudi Arabia. It'd probably be dust by now. And I translated the inscriptions at the base of Mount Sinai, the footprints, and a lot of the analysis of the
Okay.
bull icon. So I did the work to validate that this is evidence of the Exodus. So.
That's right. Now, last week on our last program that people saw, we talked about the footprints. And again, just briefly, what are the footprints? This is something that Jim and Penny photographed. These are all over that area, including Har Karkum, which is one of the 42 camping sites of the Israelites.
Right.
And that footprint, they saw something very unique about these footprints chiseled in stone. Every place that the Israelites went in Saudi Arabia as they traveled, they put those there. And they then put that to you because there was something that they saw that they couldn't figure out what it meant.
Right.
Tell us about
I
that.
traveled to Mississippi. They had sent me some information. They had sent me the inscriptions and things, but I knew that they had more that they didn't know how to interpret. So I traveled to Mississippi, and I sat there with them for a week. We went over all their documentation, and these footprints came up. And they had always had a long-standing, deep-seated belief that these were the footprints of the Israelites. I noticed that there was an alphabetic caption on them, and they'd never noticed it. They'd never noticed the triple hash mark there. And we found the letters in the ancient Talmudic alphabet that showed this was the letter Kaf, and the whole etymology of it, which you can see on the slide.
Okay. Yeah. Now I had to tell you, I was just hearkening back to that phone call after you left there, and you interpreted this for them. And when they called me on the phone, they were just jumping with joy, so excited because this is one of the greatest discoveries of all time.
It is. This is the first literate act of the Israelites to put this alphabetic caption on their footprints, which claims them as the soles of their feet. It comes from the petroglyph of a hand, the palm of the hand with the 3 hash marks on there to make the fingers. And eventually the bowl got lost, and it was just the 3 hash marks, oftentimes set against the instep of the foot. It comes from the Egyptian kap. It's kaf in Hebrew, and it means the bowl, the palm of the hand, or the instep of the foot, the bole of the foot. So it means literally the palm of the hand, the sole of the foot, and of course it also means it's now the name of the letter K in Hebrew,
Right.
Kaf.
And so when they chiseled the imprint of their sandaled feet into the rocks of the land as they traveled, they were literally saying, the sole of our foot,
Right.
Kaf, the sole of our foot was here. This is our ancient title deed to the land that Jehovah gave to us. He said, every place the sole of our foot treads, that is your inheritance. From the Euphrates all the way to the great river in Egypt. And that's
right.
That's what
This became their wasam, their tribal sign that the ancient tribes would use to mark their territory. That's exactly what it was for, to mark their territory. And it's mentioned 3 times in Scripture that wherever the soles of your feet shall tread. So they were marking, placing, and tracing their footprints. And to make sure this wouldn't be seen as a graven image, they put an alphabetic caption beside it to sanctify it, so they would know they were marking the soles of their feet as they'd been commanded to.
Now we go forward a little bit of time to where Dr. Kim. Tell us about Dr. Kim. You know,
Sun Hakim was also in the Arabia, working for the Prince of Mecca, the governor of Mecca, part of the royal family. So he's the physician to the royal family. He worked there for 20 years.
Okay,
so
now where is he from?
He's
Kim,
Korean. He's Korean.
And he's a Christian.
He is.
A Christian doctor, and his client was?
The Prince of Mecca, the crown prince, a member of the royal family. And he became like family to him. He treated him like a son. So he had wide latitude to travel, he had diplomatic plates, and also he was allowed to take artifacts out that came from the Saudi royal collection of the Ministry of Antiquities. No one else could have got these things out. You'd spend 20 years in a hot Saudi prison for this.
Right.
You don't bring this stuff out.
Attempting to do that.
Right.
But these were literally a gift from the Saudi prince to his beloved Christian physician. And what were these artifacts?
Well, he found basically what we would call a votive stone, which is about this large, if you can see that. And it had a carving which was probably of Moses. It wouldn't have been of Jehovah because he's not to be pictured.
Right.
But it had written on it, on the back it had Yod-He, and on the front it had Vav-He on it. Yod-He,
Okay, and
Vav-He.
this is the ancient pictographic alphabet.
It's not a pictographic alphabet. This was the first alphabet of letter symbols. But
Okay.
that did come from the pictographic alphabet. But this was the first step away from images, graven images.
Thank you for clarifying that.
'Cause
You
graven
are the
images-
PhD in
right.
linguistics. This is your field. You've traveled in this area,
That's
so
right. Well,
thanks
there's
for clarifying
there's a
that.
commandment, thou shalt make no graven images. Well, what are graven images? Well, to the Israelites, they were hieroglyphs. That's all they knew. Those were graven images.
Mm-hmm.
So they were
Right.
moving from that into an alphabetic system. So that is what the alphabet and the script that we find at Sinai is so important. It is the first step, and it's all there. You can see the stages of it. It's the first step away from the old pictographic alphabet to letter symbols.
Okay,
And
so-
the alphabet that changed the world.
So Dr. Kim receives this votive stone with Yod He Vav He on it,
Right.
and he leaves the country with it.
He does.
By permission.
And I first get the pictures of this from Bob Cornuck, and I'm looking at it, and I said, "Hey, I found the name of God on a stone here. See, you see here, it says Yod-He. That's the short form of the name of God. Yah is used in the Bible 49 times, just the short form of it." And he said, "Well, what does the other side of the rock say?" I said, "What other side?" And he said, "The picture right beside it." I look at it, and it says Vav-He, Yod-He, Vav-He. I didn't realize it was the other side of the same stone. We have the oldest, this is the oldest inscription of the name of God that will probably ever be found. It's like 14th century. It was found by tribesmen near Tabuk, which is about 100 kilometers away from Jebel Allah, Mount Sinai in Arabia. And it was obviously a votive stone that's on the pilgrimage path. It was not found at Sinai as has been reported. That's just sensationalism. But it was found in the area. It was obviously a votive stone that proves that Yahwehs were running around in the desert even in 14th century BC. But it's written in the ancient Talmudic alphabet, the same thing. They have the inscriptions written on Mount Sinai.
Now I have to ask you. You said you got these photographs from Bob Cornuck. We now know that Bob Cornuck was never at Mount Sinai. The whole thing was basically a fraud, and they made a lot of money on their book, Bob Cornuck and Northern Williams, but they were never there. So how did he get this picture?
Well, he got it from Dr. Kim, who's very generous.
Oh, Dr. Kim.
He actually had the stone itself.
Who did?
Cornuck did. He went on
How did he get it?
He talked Dr. Kim out of loaning it to him. He wanted to buy it from him.
Okay.
Dr. Kim was not going to sell it, but he took it on Trinity Broadcasting Network, and he explained my research as if it were his own.
Oh, well, that's what Bob Cornuck does, you know.
And then that's where he got it. And Dr. Kim had to fly back to the United States to reclaim it.
Okay, so he basically stole it from Dr. Kim so he could show it on television.
It was loaned to him, but he didn't give it back, apparently.
Okay. Okay. Well, I wonder what they call that in the court of law. But anyway, but Dr. Kim got it back, though.
He did.
Okay.
And I have examined it personally, the stone. The only one to do it. There's been a lot of critique of this stone. But as far as I know, I'm the only expert who's looked at it. You'd have to ask Dr. Kim. But I did the translation. A lot of criticism of it out there, that, it was carved yesterday to sell to tourists. You don't do that in Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Yemen. But not Saudi Arabia, you'll get thrown in jail. In fact, I would think for a young boy to do a carving like that, you'd be courting death. I don't think they want you carving the name of the ancient Jewish deity on anything.
Right, in an alphabet that has been so extinct from that area, basically. I mean, no one in Israel reads that today unless they are, in your category, a linguist, an ancient linguist.
Well, it's the Saudis themselves on their website, and you can see it. They have a website, the Ministry of Antiquities, with the Smithsonian, a joint website, in which they identify the Talmudic alphabet as coming from the 15th century BC. Now, I agree with that. I'm in complete agreement. But if you have a problem with the dating, then, argue with the Smithsonian. But that's the date of the Exodus, the biblical date of the Exodus. Now, modern secularists will say it happened in 1200 BC. They'll move the date to a point where there's no evidence of it.
Yeah, that's right. How much credence do we give those who want to manufacture evidence, redate things so that the Bible is wrong? Those kind of idiots and morons will permeate academia from here to eternity.
Right.
But we don't listen to them. It's like listening to evolutionists explain how we get speech and the alphabet, how conscious thought comes to being, through millions of years of average chance mutations. These people are so far lost. Intellectually, they can't be honest about anything because they have to deny the existence of a creator, and you can't explain the universe.
Literally, they would rather distort history. I'm serious. Consciously, they would rather distort history, which is their profession, than to give credence to the biblical story. But this is where they're going to hit you on the Exodus. They're going to say it's a false history. It didn't happen the way it says it does in the Bible. So therefore, the message of the Bible is what? If it's not an accurate history, then the message of the Bible can't be accurate either.
The whole thing. You might as well throw the whole thing out. And that's really what they want everyone to do. But be aware, the Exodus,
that's where they're going to hit you. The seminal, the seed of the covenant, the Old Testament. If that's not true, then what does it say about the rest of the Bible? It's a foundation built on sand. So just be aware. That's where we're going to hit you. So it behooves you to know as much as you possibly can about the truth of the Bible. And we're talking scientific truth, not just biblical truth, because that's what this book is all about. The writing of God was the evidence of the Exodus itself. These inscriptions at the base of Mount Sinai, the footprints, the Yahweh stone, or the Yehovah stone, these are all objective scientific evidence, proof of the truth of the seminal event of the Old Covenant. If that's true, then the Gospels all of a sudden really do make a huge difference.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because in its day, we were all calling this the Yahweh stone, were we not? But now, this year, with Nehemiah having worked on this for his whole lifetime, and now literally producing before our eyes over 1,000 ancient Hebrew manuscripts of the Bible, with all the vowel pointings, and many times with the accent points on it, now we know.
That's crucial, because the name is used in the Bible 6,872 times. You call on it for salvation. Will any name do if you're calling on it for salvation when your life is in danger? I don't think so. So it's extremely, extremely important. And the latest manuscript is out of the Vatican that he found in the Vatican junk box. Then these were done by Messianic scribes, remember, the Hebrew Gospels with the name of God using all the vowel pointing. This is a dramatic new piece of manuscript.
So we're no longer even calling the old Yahweh stone the Yahweh stone. Now we know it's
the Yehovah stone.
The Yehovah stone.
Because that is the correct way to say it.
And really, this revelation from the Vatican junk box, with the very first page of the Gospel of Luke in Hebrew,
right?
And these are not done by rabbinic scribes. These are done by Messianic scribes, and so we have right there on the first page, twice, his name is right there with all three vowel points. There's no question about it. Right. According to the Hebrews, it is to be now pronounced Yehovah.
Right.
Now, according to the Mormons, Seventh-day Adventists, whatever, the Gentiles that want to call him Yahweh, the Gentiles can do whatever they want. But if we want to go by the people to whom the living and written oracles of God were committed, they know it was pronounced Yehovah.
Right. And he is certainly the world's leading expert on this.
Who is?
Nehemiah Gordon. He spent 20 years investigating this and investigating the Shem Tov manuscript, which is the oldest manuscript of the Hebrew Gospel. Shem Tov was the author. And it was just a Matthew. And he went through thousands of documents, the Polanski Project, went all over the world since the 80s, basically recording and then later digitizing every Hebrew manuscript in every library in the world. Manuscript means handwritten, right? Every ancient manuscript in Hebrew, everything, they've got it all. But they didn't know what all of it was. So they would put miscellaneous down there. Thousands of miscellaneous books. And Nehemiah went through them all one by one, and guess what he found? 28 new, previously unknown copies of the Hebrew Matthew. That was the oldest manuscript. Now, the one I've been working on is the Hebrew Gospels from Catalan, done in the same place and the same time as the Shem Tov manuscript.
And also
but this is
found
Matthew,
in the same library or the Museum of the Extinct Race, was it not?
The Museum of the Extinct...
the Breslau manuscript.
The Breslau manuscript.
Yeah,
it's in there, yeah.
Okay.
So this has Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all in Hebrew. So this is a compilation from the first century, and we can authenticate it, and we will if you have me back for another show.
Okay. We're going to do that. I want to continue on with this for just a minute, but I see that we've already run up to the time where every one of our episodes, we give everyone an opportunity for them to participate in what the Almighty is doing in revealing these things and getting them out to the world. And to do that, it takes a great deal of money to do so. Let me ask you a question. When you got on the plane, did you say, "I'm a minister of the gospel. I get all my plane rides free"? When we pull into the gas station, no, it doesn't happen that way.
Do you have a minister discount?
Yeah, give us a ministry discount. Nehemiah flies all over the world, and it's all at great expense.
Yes.
To be able to assemble this information, and sometimes people's lives are risked to be able to do this. But ladies and gentlemen, you can participate in the adventure, support the adventure, because what we're getting, we're not waiting for this to come out. And what I have Miles here for is to reveal things that he is writing a book on, but he said, it's going to take him some time to do this. This stuff needs to get out to the world now.
That's right.
And so that's
all
what
coming
we're
out
doing
right now. New manuscripts of the Hebrew Gospels are coming out now, including the one that you just mentioned that he got in the Vatican junk pile. This is a new manuscript, other than the Shem Tov manuscript, other than the Hebrew Gospels from Catalonia, which I've been translating for the past 2 years. This is a new manuscript with all the vowel pointings of the name of God. And it's a Hebrew manuscript. It was done by Messianic scribes, but it's a new manuscript.
Well, I want you to tell that story, to trace this thing through, because these are the believers, the Messianic Jews who were hunted and tortured almost to extinction, and we're going to tell you more about that, because the underground assemblies of Yahweh have been out there holding on to the truth, and it's here for us now.
In the 1980s, Ron Wyatt and Jim and Penny Caldwell risked their lives to find the real Mount Sinai in the barren desert of Saudi Arabia. Today, their work is rapidly expanding biblical understanding and weaving together a prophetic tapestry with ancient documents tucked away in the Vatican.
These are the greatest evangelistic tools that we've ever had in our hands to show people the reality of the Scriptures.
Michael Rood and Miles Jones uncover a Sinai mystery and reveal exciting new evidence now coming to light in Beyond Mount Sinai.
This is the tie-in to the Great Secret. These were alphabetic inscriptions in the oldest alphabet known to linguistic science.
Order this amazing teaching now, Beyond Mount Sinai. Call 800-788-7887. That's 800-788-7887. Or order online at aroodawakening.tv/beyond.
Dr. Miles Jones, who was the one who deciphered the inscriptions at Mount Sinai, was backed up by Dr. David Rohl, who was really one of the stars of the Patterns of Evidence documentary that was done by Tim Mahoney. And tell us, Miles, what was his position on this, Dr. David Rohl?
Well, you were there when you took him to see Jim and Penny so he could examine their artifacts and evidence for himself. He looked at those inscriptions and they explained what they meant. And they heard him say under his breath, Well, the Israelites must have been there then, because these inscriptions are the only evidence that cannot be explained away. I mean, there are plenty of split rocks out there and altar-looking places. I don't particularly agree. I think the archaeological evidence is very, very strong there. But he's a prominent archaeologist. If he says you can explain it all away, you cannot explain away the inscriptions.
That's right. And we actually did a debate. Dr. David Roll and myself, we debated these things about the route of the Exodus and all. And there are ways to explain things away. No matter how weak they are, there are ways to do it. But when he saw this, it's like, this does it right here. There's no way. So tell us about these inscriptions again, what they conclude.
We talked about the footprints, the first literate act of the Israelites, where they placed and traced the soles of their feet and then put an alphabetic caption beside it with the triple hash mark, which is the letter K in ancient Thamudic, the earliest alphabet of letter symbols known to linguistic science. But there were other inscriptions there. There were complete inscriptions. I'm going to bring it up. The first one here says, died Kalia. Now here, you can see that the triple hash mark, the letter K, is used as an alphabetic symbol. These are the old alephs from the pictographic alphabet. Now, having a cattle icon is not unusual, but just the head of the cow stands for the aleph, right, in the old pictographic alphabet. So this inscription was made right at the cusp when they're changing over from the pictographic alphabet to the alphabet, all of symbols, because there's no difference between the patina there. The patina is the covering on the rock. It weathers, and you get a certain type of buildup of minerals on it, and when you cut through it, you get a bright gash. Right,
and that's what the pictographs of, like the chiseled feet and
exactly.
and the altar of the golden calf.
But
it's chiseling away the patina, and once you do that, it's forever changed.
It is forever changed. You can. The thing about it is it will weather again, so you can tell how old it is. That it's ancient. That's how we know that the Yehovah stone, the Moses stone, is ancient, because the weathering inside of the grooves is the same as the rest of the rock. So it's old. It's been around for a long time. This was not made yesterday. And you can see the patina has been cut through here and is about the same brightness. So they were made at, probably the same time, or at least approximately the same time. So this one shows that the triple hash mark is definitely a letter of the alphabet. Now the next one says, then came Amalek and fought with Israel and Rephidim. And remember, these particular inscriptions were found at the base of Sinai, which was Rephidim was the campsite before that, just the one they had come to just before then.
Right.
And so this is recording the fact that they had killed an Amalekite who was attacking the unprotected. That's what it says.
Okay, so Exodus 17:8 says, then came Amalek and fought with Israel and Rephidim, and then there's a stone. And what does this stone say then? The stone itself.
The stone says died Amalek. So it marks where they killed an Amalekite. These are all funerary, but they tell a story because they were all found. It was found in a grouping, right? The stone with Amalek was found with this one, which says died Hagar. You can see it right down there on the bottom. Died Hagar. It looks like Isefu. And Hagar is a name that is directly linked to Mount Sinai in the Bible. Galatians 4:6 says Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia. It's hard to find a more direct link. Now, we're not saying this was that Hagar, but it's a name that would have been widely used in the region. Hagar was the matriarch of the region.
Well, that's interesting because it is Shaul, that said this. And when Shaul left Jerusalem, he went down to Arabia, was there for years. And where would you go if you've been killing believers and you had to repent and it wasn't safe to be in Jerusalem? I'd head to Mount Sinai, back where the Torah was given.
Right. Well, it said he was seeking divine revelation. I did not go up to Jerusalem to seek those who were there.
Right.
He went into Arabia to seek divine revelation. It says that. And a few passages later, he identifies the location of Mount Sinai in Arabia, not
And
in Egypt, not in Egypt.
So this inscription, died Hagar, this, I'm just projecting here that he may have seen that. He may
Very
have seen that down there, and that is that Hagar in Sinai, which is in line with Jerusalem, as it says in Galatians.
You know, I never thought of that, but that's quite true. He probably saw all the evidence that was there. We don't know how long he stayed, but it might have been for quite a while. But he identified
Hagar,
the location.
died Hagar, right there.
In this part of a grouping, you have died Amalek, you have died Hagar, and the third one says, died Amaya, daughter of Hagar. Now that word daughter, names are names, right? But bat, for daughter, none of the other languages in the region, the ancient languages in the region, use the word bat for daughter. This is ancient Hebrew. This is ancient Hebrew.
This is incredible.
That proves this is ancient Hebrew. The names are Hebrew. All right.
Right.
So a lot of the names are Hebrew that we see in these ancient inscriptions. But this word bat, you know, and the word died is a word that we know that was used in the ancient inscriptions. So this is like a handful of inscriptions. So far we've looked at 4. The Saudis, when they sent their team in there, they found 155 different inscriptions. So there are more. There are more out there.
In these particular ones, you received these photographs from Jim and Penny, was it?
I did, yes. They're all from Jim and Penny. Now, we have some really...
Okay, now when they saw them, they had no idea what they were.
They didn't know.
Outside of their field. He's an oil field engineer.
Right, and that was our first contact when I called them up. I'd been researching the writing of God in 3216 as the original alphabet. I had no idea about the controversy over the location of Mount Sinai. I was a latecomer. You know, I was already researching it, and someone told me, do you know about this debate over the location of Mount Sinai? Well, here's a book that has the information. They had all this archaeological information, really quite convincing. So that's when I got a hold of Jim and Penny, who had provided that evidence. And the first thing they said was, how interesting that you should call. We have inscriptions from the base of Mount Sinai in Arabia. Do you think you could translate them for us? So they sent them to me.
What a treasure. And so it's like your whole life was to get ready for this moment in time that these would be found. No one had any idea what they were, how to read them, and they were put in your hands, and you can read them.
That's true. I was fascinated with the origin of the alphabet since I was, in my 20s in college studying linguistics. And so I studied it all those years, and every place where I went to, I studied it and studied any inscriptions I could find. And then I was told to do this. I was called specifically to find the evidence on this. And then the Caldwells stepped in, because I basically whined to Yehovah that, I don't know how you would launch an expedition, how long it would take you, how much money it would cost, but as long as you open the doors I can't, I'll charge through them. Within 2 months, the Caldwell sent me the information. Didn't even have to pay the postage.
Now, let me ask you, you started on this linguistic journey at 20 years of age in college. I assume you were a believer already at that point? Or?
I was a lapsed believer.
Oh, okay.
Raised in the Presbyterian Church. I'd gone far away from it. And this was my journey back.
Okay. And what a journey it continues to be.
It has been a huge journey. But when I went into it, I was a product of the secular university. I believed everything they had taught me. But eventually, because of my love for the children I taught, I began to question everything I'd been taught because it wasn't working. And that led me to the great secret of Sinai, the way God did it, the godly way of doing it. And that changed my life. But I was willing, and still am, if I see something that I think someone has inserted things in the New Testament, for example.
Oh, yeah.
I will say so. Whether it makes me popular or not, I will say it like I see it. But my examination of the Exodus evidence proved beyond a shadow of a doubt to any reasonable person, any reasonable scientist for sure, that it happened at that place at exactly the biblical time it says, at exactly the place it says. It happens in the Old Covenant, right there, at Sinai in Arabia.
Okay.
We have it.
I don't want to throw you completely off track, so continue on with these revelations.
Well, the other thing that we found there was the well, it was not found there, but the Yahweh stone. The Yahweh stone
Oh,
is
wait, we're going to correct it.
the Yehovah stone, or the Moses stone, as it is called.
All right.
There is other evidence there, the archaeological evidence, the stone columns that were found at the altar at the very base of the mountain. This is specifically described in Scripture, where a stream comes out of the mountain right at the base. They describe it perfectly, and the stone columns to the 12 tribes were written beside it. What do you find here? You find an altar at the base with a chamber for burnt offerings that has the organic remains,
right,
ashes and animal bones in it. That's exactly what you'd find in a. Then the Saudis did this. This is one of the things they gave away, and it's right there. And you can see the pictures that the Saudis took in their investigation. The ones that the Caldwells took right beside it. You can see it's the same. It's exactly the same information.
Right, and those who have seen the video by Ron Wyatt where he's talking about this, he is talking about the evidence that the Caldwells put in his hands. So he's interpreting from the video and from the photographic evidence and making his conclusions on that, because there were things that Ron never saw. And he told me that he didn't see these things. The Caldwells were the ones that found it and documented it, and then we have it in our hands now.
But he did a great job of getting the information out to the public.
Absolutely.
Have others. They've been used by Yehovah, even though they may have made mistakes. They still help to publicize it, which is good. But we stick to the evidence.
Ron told me that Bob Cornuke has done a far better job getting the information out, even though Bob Cornuke was never at Mount Sinai.
He has. That's true.
But it's true with me. I've never been to Mount Sinai either. I just don't pretend that I did.
I haven't either.
But to get it out to the world, that's our job. It's our job as believers to get this out to the world. And so however it's gotten out to the world, it needs to get out there.
It does. It does. It's critically important. Speaking of people who have been to Mount Sinai, we have new information from Professor Ryan Morrow. He's a Fox News analyst on the Middle East. New photos, new inscriptions like this one, the footprint with the triple hash mark. And he's a bona fide expert and a Sinai researcher in his own right. And he's got a website, Sinai in Arabia, where you can probably find most of this. But this is just broke. I have permission to show it on this show. This is just broke.
Oh, okay.
Nobody has seen this stuff yet. And this is an ancient Talmudic inscription, a little bit illegible, but you can enough to see that it's ancient Talmudic. And the triple hash marks, footprints with sandal straps. That's the way they did it in the other pictures we have.
And this is all from the...
This is from the area around Rephidim and Mount Sinai in Arabia.
And so this is from the journalist that's with Fox News?
Right. This is Professor Ryan Morrow.
Okay. All right.
So
well, good job, Ryan. This is good to see this.
This is from around the Split Rock. Now,
that's incredible. And now that we've got the video footage of the drone going over the top of this.
Well, see, that cinches it, right? You cannot say that Jim and Penny whipped this up in Photoshop or got it from somewhere else, other pictures from somewhere else. Everyone is going there finding the same stuff.
And these are the things that have been said.
Even the Saudi researchers have pictures of it, right? So that's over now. Claiming that the Jim and Penny are frauds, that's dead now. Their archives have been proven over and over to contain exactly what they said they did. So another one that we have here is Dr. Sung-Hak Kim, and this is a beautiful inscription.
Here he
this is the menorah. Now the menorah in Exodus, they take 10 whole passages where Yehovah explains exactly how to make this. And then at the end, the last verse, he says, make sure you make it exactly the way I told you to on Mount Sinai, right? And that's exactly the way he told to make it. Now, you will notice that in the New Testament and in the Old Testament, in Gentile Bibles, they always eliminate the word menorah and use the word candlesticks. Well, a menorah is not just any old candelabra. We know exactly what it is. It was made specifically by Yehovah specifically this way. It's not any old candlestick, but what it does is...
there were no such thing as candles back then.
Right.
They are lampstands.
That's right, they were
and
lampstands.
It's a stand, a 7-branch stand for 7 lamps that was on it.
They did not want the menorah to become a Christian icon. That's exactly the reason they left it out and translated it as candlesticks. All right, and what difference does it make? It makes a huge difference. When Yeshua said, "You do not light a candle to put it under a bushel," he said, "You light it to put it on a menorah and hold it up for all the world to see." Different meaning, right?
Right.
A lot of a different meaning. And in Revelation, it opens the whole revelation of St. John opens with the picture of not a candlestick, but a menorah. And through the menorah, you see on the other side the Son of Man. Now, do I have to explain the symbolism of that to you? But you lose all the symbolism of it and the meaning of it when you start toying with the words because you're editing the Bible. And that's exactly what that is. That's editing of the Bible. But in the Hebrew Gospels, they don't edit it. A menorah is a menorah. Wherever it's mentioned, it's a menorah. So you find, that's why finding the Hebrew Gospels is so important. I always explain that to people.
Right,
it's
right,
only
because-
important if you want to know the truth of the word. If you don't care, then it doesn't matter.
And that's why I want you to get into this, Miles, because they have paganized. They have taken the Hebrew concepts out of the subsequent versions of the Bible. Even this last week, someone was reading about in Luke chapter 6, verse 1. It says it was the second Sabbath after the first. That's what it says in King James, and it's correct. But in many versions, it just says it was one of the Sabbaths. Well, you completely lose the chronology. The second Sabbath after the first is the Rosh Chodesh. It was the second Sabbath after the Rosh Chodesh in which Yeshua was at a great feast at the house of Matthew when Matthew was called from his job as a toll booth collector for the Romans. And if you take away that, the second Sabbath after the first of all, every commentary I've ever looked at has been done by Gentiles, and they decimate this thing.
Right.
They have no idea what the biblical reckoning of time is. Why would it be the second Sabbath after the first? What does that mean? They have no idea.
Why is that important?
Right. They have no idea.
That's a great example because you lose all that detail when the Greeks start recopying the Bible because they're clueless about the Hebrew calendar, the finer details of Hebrew culture, even the names of Hebrews, and the whole timeline. They're all happened way in the past, so they often get these things wrong. When you go back to the Hebrew, you get the closer story to the Hebrew Messiah who actually walked upon the earth.
I'm so excited about what we're going to be able
We're
to get
getting ahead of
into
ourselves.
when we get into Luke and all. Okay, continue on, because we're going to have to continue on with this. There's more stuff than we can possibly cover in this week together.
That's right. But the key is, like I said about Sinai, that is the anchor of the Bible, the most important, the seminal event, the Sinai covenant of the Old Testament. If that's false, what does the rest of it matter? Literally. And that's why they're trying to hit it there. The name of God is a second key, right? And this is what we find in the Yahweh stone, the Yehovah stone, the Moses stone it's often called. That Yahweh's were running around the desert in Arabia in the 14th century. And this, we have the oldest inscription of the name of God on this stone that will probably ever be found.
Up to this point, the silver scrolls that were found on Bible Hill in Israel, that was the oldest inscription of the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Now, it goes right back to Sinai.
And that was like 7th or 8th century. They figure maybe as old as 750 BC. This is twice that. This is 14th century BC. So
what a treasure.
Oh, yeah, it is a treasure.
And this is what was given to Dr. Kim by the Saudi prince, and you did the work in translating it. And we've got just a couple of minutes left.
Right.
We're going to have you back, Miles, because we've got to do some more. But continue on.
Well, good thing we'll be doing an extra session so we can get into some more of the detail of this. But we have we have nailed down the etymology of these letters, and the ones that are used on the stone. So we can see that in detail. And this is even the people that criticize the Yehovah stone don't even try to argue the date of the letters, because they'd be wrong. It wouldn't serve their purpose. They just try to come up with some bizarre arguments that mean that, to explain it away, like pits on the rock. They say, well, this vowel pointing shows that it's definitely a guttural H. They didn't have vowel pointing back then, not for 2,000 more years. So
they'll make up anything.
Well, see,
make up anything.
That's demagoguery. They're counting on the fact that you're not an expert in ancient lettering. I can look at it and say, "Are you an idiot?" They didn't use vowel pointing until 800,000 A.D. That's 2,000 years later. So that's a pit in the rock. What are you trying to do? So that is the kind of detail that we have now on the evidence from Mount Sinai. And I think things are tipping. You tell me what you think, but I look now and I see in newer Bibles that they now mention the site of Mount Sinai in Arabia, which they didn't used to do that. So things are tipping. I think a lot of people are aware of this. And
that's why, Miles, we're getting this information out there, forcing it out there against the norm, against the guardians of ignorance, really. Right. And trying to get this out to where people wake up. And we're going to continue on with this. Miles is going to be back. We're going to get into some of these Hebrew Gospels and then get back into the evidence and how we know that these things came from these originals. And though there are people out there that are saying that Nehemiah and I and Miles and Nehemiah are claiming that we have original manuscripts. There are no original manuscripts. Anybody that tells you that, they're idiots. They're complete morons if they think that there are any original manuscripts that exist. They are dust. That's all we have are copies of copies of copies, and we're going to be back next week, and we're going to dig into some of these things for some of the most beautiful treasures, because if there's anything we need to understand, it's the words of the prophet whom we must shema. We must hear and obey, and that prophet is Yeshua.
Look at the stones of Sinai. Those are original manuscripts. The stones shall cry out. Yeshua based his authority on the Sinai covenant. So now
okay,
we'll move
there
on.
you have it. And so we've already run out of time. Bless you. Yehovah bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you, be gracious unto you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. In the name of Yeshua, the Messiah, the Prince of Peace, the prophet we must hear and obey. And we'll be back next week on Shabbat Night Live to hear more about the words of the prophet from the Hebrew Gospels. Shalom. Shavua Tov. Have a good week. Bye-bye.